G'day everyone, it's Coach Michelle J. Raymond, your trusted guide for building your brand and your business on LinkedIn. And this is time for a celebration for me and for you listeners. I am up to my 200th podcast episode, and I never in a billion years ever imagined that I would be recording something that had that title in it. And it is just mind-blowing as somebody that doesn't listen to podcasts, is this committed to showing up every single week. And I wanted to think about how I could make this episode interesting for you rather than just talk about, yay, I did 200 episodes, aren't I cool? That's not helpful to anybody that's listening. So I had this idea. I wanted to go to the one and only Podmaster Neil Velio, who is a dear friend of mine, my podcast coach, mentor, and probably counselor in the background most of the time, because I wanted to be a guest on my own show. That's right, I'm being a full-on narcissist in this episode, and I am going to ask him to hit me with your best questions. Neil, thank you for agreeing to this craziness.
Oh, it's an absolute honor, and I can't wait to get started.
Look, I know that you have prepared questions, which I don't know anything about. The only way that I've set this up with you is I wanted it to be real. Nothing's off limits. What's your first question? Let's do this.
I thought we'd start a little bit gently and get more of a sort of like an overall picture of Michelle J. Raymond, Coach Michelle J. Raymond, and, you know, what Michelle does for the people that she helps, of which we know there are many. So what I'm going to ask you first of all is, what is the most irritating misconception that people have about what you do?
I think they think that I just give everything away for free, that I just show up and do podcasts and write content and, you know, have a YouTube channel. And that's the only way that people can work with me. But the fact is, I do have a training business where I love working with businesses to teach them how to grow their business. So first and foremost, training is my absolute passion. And these tools like the podcast and all the content that I put out there are just ways to give you little tasters of that. But the main meal is definitely training. But I've recently moved into doing things like done for you services, Neil, because I've found in this world right now that training budgets got slashed. There are teams out there that have halved in size as people got laid off. So shout out to any of the listeners that have been through this. But essentially what's happened is now there's these gaps where people are like, oh, that's great that you got rid of half the team and no AI can't just replace them. So, you know, we need some help in the meantime to actually do the work. So B2B Growth Co, Lil and I are in the business. Now we help more and more people with that done for you. And sometimes it can be short term while you're trying to maybe recruit for someone else. And sometimes that's a longer term relationship, which are my favorites, where I almost become like part of people's teams. But yeah, there is actual ways that people can work. Probably the last thing that I do is I rewrite LinkedIn profiles for people. And I never thought this in a million years would also be something that I would say, because somebody asked me a few years back, like, Michelle, can you rewrite my profile? We'd been working together for a little while. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh God, no, I can think of nothing worse if I'm being honest. Like I was like, but I really like the customer. And of course, like, you know, money in's always a good thing. So I gave it a go. And it turns out it's actually probably one of my favorite things to do, because I'm passionate about making sure that people don't undersell themselves in their LinkedIn profiles. And most people, myself included, it's super hard to write about yourself. And especially when so much changes on LinkedIn to get it right, and having that optimization so you show up in as many places. But nothing makes me happier than when I do it for a client and then the feedback I get is, oh shit, is that me? I was like, yes, that's you in your words, you know, and that's the kind of feedback I love, because I can show people who they really are out in the world. So yeah, that's kind of fun, but that's what I do if anyone's curious.
And so when you're doing these profile rewrites, then do you ever get any sort of people, any clients that come back to you and they get a little bit icky about what you've written and they've gone, oh no, I don't feel comfortable with this, I want to change it back again? Has that ever happened to you?
they don't say that they want to change it back, but they do feel really uncomfortable because it's the first time that they've probably ever seen somebody write about them in the way that I write about them. So I discover what makes them unique. I put it back to them in their own words. So it's not like this really weird version, written by in third person, for instance, about them. It is actually their own words. And I uncover what they're really passionate about in what they do and give it back to them. And I do preface it before I start sending it back for the first round of approvals and say, this will make you feel really uncomfortable, especially the women that I write the profiles for. And I've got to work with some amazing people to rewrite their profiles that are doing some amazing stuff and literally changing the world we live in. And they look at it and they're like, oh, wow, is that what I've achieved? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, that's your words. I'm not in the business of making stuff up. I've just given it back to you like a mirror and shown you who you are in the world to me. And that is like just a blessing and one of my favorite things that I can do. But yeah, does it make them feel really uncomfortable? Absolutely. Like, do I love that piece the most? Absolutely.
So obviously you live and breathe LinkedIn. Obviously you got the podcast, you got the YouTube channel. You're massively prolific on LinkedIn, both on your own page and also the B2B company page, the social media for B2B company page. Are there any days where you wake up, you get out of bed and you think, oh, I just can't do LinkedIn today, like the rest of us?
1,000%. And those days are pretty frequent at the moment. I over the last 4 to 6 weeks, if I'm being honest, and there's other podcast episodes that I know you've listened to over the last few weeks that I share about this stuff, because ever since they changed that algorithm back in June, and it's all about that whole relevance versus reach, allegedly, i.e. we're meant to be seen by the more of the right people as opposed to more people. And it's had a huge impact. And it's not just like on the performance of my posts. Like, I don't care about numbers that much. But what it is the impact that it's had on people in my community globally, and I mean everybody. We were used to this being a certain way for so long, like 20 odd years. And then overnight, you change the rules of the game that we've been playing. And then now, how do I measure success? Because it was always the number of impressions on your post. That was the go-to. The bigger the number, the better. And then those numbers, which have been so consistent for me for, the last 10 years I've been doing this, all of a sudden they dropped by 30, 40%, just like everybody else's. And then I'll do a post, which I put, not much effort into. It takes off. Again, no rhyme or reason to a lot of this stuff. And so between that going on for me and the way it's impacting everyone around me, as a really sensitive empath kind of person, I pick up everybody else's feelings on the platform and it really impacts me. So I've found myself over the last kind of month especially, like I had to take some time away. Like I've been a DIY reno person off the platform, away from LinkedIn, just because I needed some time away, because it made me question not just LinkedIn. Like the honest answer is that it made me question, how could I show up, say, on this podcast, which is all about using LinkedIn for growth? How can I write content if right now my business wasn't performing as much as it was, if my content isn't performing as much as it was, despite how much effort I was putting in? Like, the types of work that I'm doing and the amount of effort that I'm doing. And I've got Lil in the background that's also helping me keep all of this together. Like she's that constant that's putting out the content on the company pages that you see for B2B Growth Co. and social media for B2B Growth podcast page. Like she takes care of all of that. So we're doing what we were doing, but the world changed, and I'm not sure whether it's just the impact of AI. I don't know whether it's financial markets and impacts around the world, the uncertainty that comes with wars. But it just felt like, I don't know, it just feels awful to me right now, and I'm like, I don't want to play. I like sunshine and fairies and glass half full. And LinkedIn doesn't feel like that. And I'm not sure when it's going to come back or if this is just what I need to adjust to. And yeah, it's tough. And I feel for a lot of people out there because I have the wisdom and benefit that comes with 10 years of experience. I've spent 20 years in sales. I know what I've got to do to get this back up and running. If you're just starting out, like, yeah, I don't know what you're going to do. You will need help. I don't think you can spend time like we used to be able to do, figuring it out for yourself, making mistakes, because the amount of time that it will take you to see results, unless you're cashed up and got huge investment behind you, I get worried for people, Neil. Like I genuinely get worried for people because they burn through their savings, and money, like it or not, brings you choices. It's probably something that Lil taught me. Money gives you choices. So if you burn through your savings, that has an impact. It's not just about LinkedIn. It's about the life you have, your family, the holidays you want to take, like that kind of stuff. That's what I'm most worried about for other people, not whether their post hits, 500 or 1,000 impressions. Like, could not care less. That is my least favorite part about LinkedIn. But how do you use it to grow your business? That's what I'm focused on. And right now it's tough, like, myself included.
Okay, talking about yourself included, let's explore that for a moment. So you said if you were having to start again, you wouldn't know what to do. So let's imagine you are your own client. What advice is Coach Michelle J. Raymond giving Coach Michelle J. Raymond in the morning tomorrow?
What a fabulous question. This is exactly why I got you here. Coach Michelle J. Raymond would look back. The very first thing that we've got to work out is what makes you unique or different to everybody else out there. Because if I look back when I set up B2B Growth Co., which had a completely different name 5 years ago, and I was just faking it and figuring it out, and just figured maybe during COVID, like I could teach my old industry, which is the beauty industry, how to use LinkedIn to sell, like I had been as an account manager working for someone else for the 6 years before that. And it seemed like a good idea. And I still think it was, but silly me, instead of just chasing down that industry, all of a sudden got distracted. And that was an industry, I was the only person in the world that was creating content on LinkedIn. I was talking about that industry. It would have been such an easy transition, but I thought I had to let go of that industry to set up this new business. And in hindsight, I wish I'd just stuck to it, because it would have been easy to be Michelle, the LinkedIn trainer for the beauty industry globally. I'd already built a community. I'd built up credibility. I'd built all of that. I was different to everybody else. So the one thing that made my journey different was, figuring out that company pages were the thing that no one else was talking about. And so therefore I could own that space. And people that are listening to this going, yeah, but everybody talks about my particular topic. No one's a unicorn or the monopoly in most industries, but find your way of doing it. Whether you like to be like the person that's calling crap out and, like Neil does, or if you care about other people like I do, or mixtures of both, like we both have the same. This is why I think we get along so well, because we actually care enough to call out the rubbish. But I think you got to stand for something as well. I think that's important. So going back, find something that makes you unique, have opinions and make a stand for something, and just be really clear and not try and make it fancy and polish it up to the point where no one else understands what you do, because that's the danger on LinkedIn of trying to be professional. And I think being professional on LinkedIn is what kills most people's results.
So are you saying then that you would now, if this was tomorrow, if you had to set in place a strategy 24 hours from now, are you saying you would double down on that? Is that your approach?
Yeah, I would definitely double down on that. I, over different periods of time, have strayed away from things like company pages. Like there are times when I get crappy with, the performance of them, and I get really upset and I'm like, they're crap. Why do we need to worry about it? Just like everybody else. And I think I love selling. So maybe I'll, talk about selling more. And there's plenty of people on LinkedIn that talk about that. So I tend to go off the track, bring myself back on track, off and back on. And that's probably from a lack of planning on my behalf. Like, that's not my strength. I'm not a planner. I need to probably establish more of that. So if I was, talking to myself, this is the counselor that you always are for me. It is having that strategy and that planning. Just like I teach my clients in my growth framework, G is for game plan, but taking time out of my business to actually slow down for a minute and say, okay, what are we doing? Where are we going? And what makes me different is some questions I need to answer for myself.
Let's talk more about the podcast. Let's get meta for a moment. So 200 episodes. Congratulations, first of all. That is, I can tell you now, as someone that works with lots of podcasters and has done for many years, that's an incredible achievement. The amount of podcasts that get to that landmark, probably fewer than I could count on one hand, certainly when I've got a pint in the other. But my question for you is, when did you first realize, because I know you had a bit of a checkered past with your podcast. When I first met you, you weren't really that in love with it. Let's be honest about it. But present company accepted listener, thank you very much for joining us. But, that's the truth, is the podcast wasn't really getting you the results that you wanted. You were thinking, oh, why am I doing this? I'm not really into it. When was the moment that you actually realized, you know what, this could change my life?
Yeah, and it is a confession. The first, I would say, 100 episodes, I have thought about going back and deleting those. And if I look at why, I know I'm not allowed to, and I know that they're part of the journey, and I know that some people would have been around, we're talking years ago now. But when I first started it, it was because, my friend Michelle Griffin, she said, Michelle, you need a podcast. And I was like, why do I need a podcast? She's like, it's good for your personal brand. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So I figure out the tech so that I can record it, and I'm not going to say I figured out the tech well, but enough to get it recorded and uploaded. Until I learned better. If I could go back to my younger self podcasting days, just go and speak to Neil, get him to do it properly for you the first time. You can save yourself 100 episodes. But what happened was, I did it because I wanted to have conversations with people. I almost wanted them to become my friends, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. There was no strategy. There was no person that was a listener in mind. It was all about me, and what I needed and wanted. And that was fine. And having guests was always good to help keep me accountable, because I can't be trusted, back then to show up every week and do that consistently. I literally just did whatever, and the downloads were, when you see numbers like 30 or 20 and you're thinking, talking to 20 people, what the heck? Is this microphone even on? Is anyone out there listening? That's what it was. I was thinking, God, this is a lot of work by the time you record and edit and, organize all the guests. It's 6-8 hours for the level and standard that I was doing when someone like you is doing. And sure, you're an expert, so you could probably speed some of those processes up. But it's not a half an hour show. Half an hour is the amount of time I invested into it. So there was a moment, and when I started to see that the messages that I started to get when I tightened things up were from people that I really wanted to work with. And they were my favorite clients when they became clients. We were aligned in values. They knew exactly who I was, how I would show up, my approach to LinkedIn. So, in the early days before I got this sorted, be like people in engagement pods, and I'd want to punch them through the screen. I was like, no, we're not going down engagement pod routes. We can't do that. But now, the people I work with from the podcast are just amazing. And as you know, I think it was January 2023, I got a cease and desist letter from LinkedIn asking me to basically change the name of the podcast. That was putting it nicely. If I didn't do it, I would lose my whole LinkedIn account. I had to change the name, which meant changing the website, removing LinkedIn's logo from every YouTube banner that I'd ever created. There was a long list of things and a huge amount of work that I needed to do. And by it was called LinkedIn for B2B Growth, which is a great title for this podcast. And then I had to take it out, and my numbers kept sliding in a way that I couldn't stop it. And you and I worked together, I think it was July 2023 the first time, because I knew at that point I either needed to have expert help that would turn this around or flick the switch, say goodbye, and say no more podcasting for me. And that moment, I think, was the moment that I went, actually, no, this is important to me. I realized the loyalty that podcast listeners come with. I realized that it's a really close and intimate relationship with podcast listeners, even though I don't know who they are. And so it's weird. And I know you and I have had this conversation. You're nodding your head for those people that will be listening to this on the audio. Neil's like nodding his head fiercely in agreement. And it's just weird, but I love it. And I for someone that doesn't listen to podcasts, I finally think I get it, Neil. There you go. There's your sound grab. I think I finally get the power of podcasting, and it's grown my business. Like, absolutely. Most of my new clients typically come from a lead from my podcast now, like 6, 7 out of 10 easily, which for someone that spends so much time on LinkedIn, it makes you question things some days.
So let me understand that you're basically saying that the moment you realized this podcast was changing your life was after the drama with LinkedIn, after you felt that show was being taken away from you and that everything you built with it was under threat. It took that for you to realize, do you know what? This podcast is amazing and it is absolutely changing my life.
Yeah, because I had to realize at that moment that I wasn't doing it for me and me only. Like, I love showing up and being in service of my audience and my listeners. And this had become such an amazing way for me to do that. And if you remember when we first spoke, like, I used to always have guests, and I was far too scared and doubted myself severely that I could never record an episode by myself. And remember, like, I'm sure that there's DMs between you and I. In fact, I know that there are, where I was going, oh my God, when I try and record one by myself, this thing's taken me like an hour to do. It's all too hard. It gets stuck in my own head. And the only way I got out of it again was, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the people that listen, because I genuinely am in service of that audience. And then when I finally got out of my own head again, had a strategy where I would show up and create something that would be useful for other people, that they could go away and immediately put into practice easily. And it was easy to understand for everyone, no matter what level that they were at. I started enjoying it even more, and I wanted to show up. And I have guests infrequently now because I'm like, no, this is my moment and my microphone. And I work so hard to build this. And I built it completely organically, over that time, as you know. And it's just been from getting better and better at this craft. Like, how can I be a better speaker? I think the best compliment I've got is people keep questioning if I'm one of those AI generated videos. And, I'm like, no, I just talk like this and thanks. Is my skin routine working? You think I'm like that perfect? But, that's what, practice and commitment and dedication to this, because there are days when I think, God, is this thing working? Why should I? Is it all worth it? And, then I have a podcast listener reach out and say, you told me in the ads that you wanted people to reach out and connect. Here I am. And I'm like, yes, I genuinely do. And I get super excited about it.
Oh, so that does work then. Brilliant.
It really does. Who would have thought? I'm pretty sure that came out of our strategy session, when we were setting up those, little sound bites and just, getting better at little bits of podcasting, because it's not just, as you would say, show up, turn on the mic, record, and then go away. Like honestly, that just feels like someone's sliming you. It's like no one needs any more talking at. And again, it's still, for me, I'm going to say hard to do something which I'm so passionate about and the people on the other side and not know who you are. So if you are listening to this and you hear the messages where I say, please reach out and connect with me, like it's genuine, please reach out and let me know you listen.
Love it. Great answer. What's the most excruciating myth about how to achieve LinkedIn success that you wish would just die already, and why is it engagement pods?
You stole my answer. I think, in general, that you can shortcut success. And by that, it could be engagement pods. It could be using automation tools. It could be using AI to write content that you think nobody else knows that you used AI. We do. We feel it, like the feeling and the empathy and the emotions and the humor and the sense of who you are as a person is missing from it. And we can feel it, and that's what I think is actually missing on LinkedIn right now. And unfortunately, it happened at the time when the algorithm chopped things in half, and then the AI content came in that took the soul out of the platform. And those two things happened at the same time. And it was a really ugly collision. And I think that's why it feels so, kind of rocky out there at the moment. But trying to cheat the system to get results for your business, for, your work, however you use LinkedIn, that whole side of LinkedIn infuriates me at best. And I'll keep it nice on the podcast so we don't have to use that bleep button, over and over and over again. But it infuriates me. Yeah, it just infuriates me because good people that are super smart, that the world should hear their voices, are getting drowned out. And, that is what's driving me crazy about it, because those people give up. Not all of I call them like the mosquitoes at picnics, like they're all around and they swarm and they're annoying and you just want to slap them and make them go away. Like that's the engagement pod and automation people to me. Like go away. Like no one wants another automated, untargeted message about whatever crap you're offering and that you didn't even find out did the person need. That's the thing. Like it takes time to build relationships, trust, and credibility on LinkedIn. There's nothing I can do about that. Like that's called being humans. And if it's worth it to you, it's worth putting in the effort. And it doesn't mean you have to have thousands of followers, but it's time to actually cut those numbers, like forget about the numbers and get back to why are you actually even doing this? And I think if I can influence some people out there that might be listening to this or see my content or whatever it happens to be, to actually go, oh yeah, that automation tool that promises the world but breaks the LinkedIn user agreement. Yeah, as much as I want my time back, is it worth the risk of alienating my target audience and potentially losing my account? And alienating your target audience, that for me is the biggest risk to anybody's LinkedIn strategy, is burning through those contacts just because you think automation makes life easier. I wish it just doesn't work like that. If it did, I would be here sharing it with everyone. Like, I'm lazy at heart. May not seem like it, but I'm genuinely a lazy person looking for the easiest way to do things. And that is unfortunately not it.
Tell us about a core belief that you've had around LinkedIn since you really started taking this seriously that you've now U-turned on.
Oh, core belief. Yeah, look, sometimes it is about engagement pods, and this is hilarious given the conversation that we've just had. And I haven't done a full U-turn, but I can see the attraction to engagement pods. I can see why people are drawn to them. I can see the idea of being part of a community and helping each other. I can see why people are attracted to it. I also question some days whether being right about engagement pods. So for people who don't know what it is, you pay to be a part of a group where everyone likes and comments on your stuff. You look like you've got hundreds of likes, hundreds of comments, and you're so amazing. Now, I fundamentally disagree with cheating the system, but there are some days, Neil, where I think, like, what's the point of me trying to play by the rules when no one else is playing by the rules, or the people that aren't playing by the rules are getting more opportunities, getting paid more, growing faster. And, unfortunately, people judge LinkedIn success by numbers of followers that the person has. And when you think about it, I could go and buy 10,000 followers for about $500. It's going to take me inviting 100 a week at a 40% acceptance rate. I don't know. Someone else can do the maths for me out there, but I'm going to have a lot more gray hairs by the time that 10,000 ever happens. So some days there is a part of me that goes, am I the dumb one? And then of course I just like slap myself across the face and go, Michelle, like, you could never live with yourself. You couldn't sleep at night. But I'd be lying if I said that I hadn't thought about that recently, because some days it does feel like the only way to win is cheating. And, when you look at other people who are allegedly winning at LinkedIn and they're cheating, and they are some of the best known or most well-known names out there. I don't know. But for those of you out there, don't worry, I haven't gone to the dark side.
Do you know, I love that honesty, and I'll share equal honesty here, that I actually, about a month ago, I myself did research some tools, and then I thought to myself, should I? I mean, does anybody care? And of course, we got our friend Daniel, who's out there exposing all these people. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if I showed up on one of his pods? And then it's like the whole hypocrisy of, I spent nearly 18 months during a mental health crisis going nuts on all this publicly. And then it's that whole thing, isn't it? Of, you've had this very staunch position on it. Like, that is brand damaging. If you suddenly go, do you know what? Actually, I think I got this wrong, and now I'm doing it as well. It's just not worth it, as you say, is it?
Yeah, and I couldn't be someone, which seems to be a trait of people in the engagement pods, of pretending and denying that I'm not. I'm not that person, Neil. Like, I am such an open book. I will tell anyone anything about myself. I have nothing to hide. And so I would tell them, and then I would have to deal with like how I felt about myself if I was to do that. And I would feel like I'm letting people down, that it implies that you're not enough, that this game can't be won if you play by the rules. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Like, I run a successful business. I help other people to, achieve goals on LinkedIn. I know that it works. And so I keep coming back to that on the hard days. And I just keep going back to, why do I do this? Problem solving and helping people. The more I do of both, the more that my business grows. And it's just like trusting in the process to grow the podcast. Like, if you'd asked me back in the beginning, where I'd be lucky to get 50 to 100 downloads in a month, like that I would be getting 3,000 downloads, which again, there are people out there that are probably getting millions. And I'm like, no, I know my 3,000 are real. They're genuine listeners. They get value from this. It is helping them achieve their goals. Like, that means something to me. And I don't want to jeopardize what fulfillment I get out of that by compromising it with, I cheated to get there. Like, imagine giving up fulfillment. That's not something that I'm prepared to compromise on. Like, there are some parts of my job I have to do because that's how you run a business, and you probably do 80% of stuff that you don't really like, so you can do the 20% you do like. That's called owning a business, when you don't have 50 million staff to do everything you don't want to do. And that's okay, but I'm not giving up the piece that keeps me most fulfilled, which is seeing my clients have those light bulb moments where they have that change, where someone does their first post, when they get over that fear and start to put themselves out there. Nothing could replace that for me. And if I just said, just put it in here and throw it and everyone's going to like it. And, people see through that pretty quickly and go, I don't understand. Why do all these third world country people keep liking my content? And how is that going to get me new business? Like, no, it's not. But hey, you'll feel good about yourself because you got the dopamine hits. Like, yeah, hollow victory, right?
Quite. So talking about, you were saying about how you want to grow everything authentically, including the podcast. So for anybody that's been enjoying this show since episode 100, we've established we're now on, we're at the 200 mark. hopefully many still to come. But what do you think the biggest shift your audience will have experienced with you since episode 100 to now?
My confidence in speaking my views and not just relying on expert guests who I look up to. And I used to think that only my listeners would show up just because I had these well-known guests. And I have had some pretty amazing guests on the show who I love these people. They've taught me, inspired me, are super cool. But as you said to me, Michelle, they show up week after week for me, not for the guests. And that was like, smacked me straight between the eyes. Like, what? And I still some days, and now I've got the confidence to say what I want to say in my own way and call out the things that I want to call out and give people both sides to the story. And I think that's what my listeners appreciate, is that I will give you both sides. I'm not here to tell you exactly how to do LinkedIn, but I will tell you, look, this is the upside, this is the downside. You choose, right? Like, I will give you pros and cons, but it's ultimately coming back to you to figure out what works best for you. So as we go forward, I think there's some of the beliefs that I have around, AI is probably the thing that's impacting LinkedIn and, the world in general so much right now. But I feel like we're moving away and using that as the decoy that's distracting us from doing the real work that matters, i.e. having conversations with people. And it feels like if I use a tool, I won't have to talk to my customer. I won't have to use empathy to understand what it's like for them. And so going against the grain, I would be more popular, I think, if I just went, yay, AI, here's your 20 prompts. And I will do some of that. But in my heart of hearts, what's right for me is to say, no, you need to go back and build relationships. And that is the core of success on LinkedIn. Finding those right people, connecting with those right people, nurturing them, being patient over time is going to get people further than the latest AI tool that can mimic your voice and pretend that the content was written by you, when we all can feel that it's not. And I just wholeheartedly believe that. And use the tools to save you time elsewhere. Like, go for it. I'm not an anti-AI person, but I think I have to be a stand that it just can't be a part of relationships. And that's going to go against what a lot of people out there are going to tell you. And I'm going to have to be okay with that, just like I was when I was telling people that company pages should be part of a business strategy on LinkedIn. And people were like, no, that's rubbish. Like, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm okay with that. And I hope that my listeners appreciate that. They may or may not agree with me. That's totally fine. Like, I hope that, a group of them don't agree with me. That's what I love about LinkedIn, is that we can have different voices out there. And the biggest, fear that I have is we end up in just like clones of each other. Like, that would be the thing that would make me most sad about LinkedIn, is if it just became clones of clones of clones.
Oh, I like the fact that you brought up clones of each other, because you're talking about AI there and about how a lot of people are sort of leaning into automation and sort of like they've just basically copied and pasted from ChatGPT. Are you not concerned, he says in a leading question kind of way, about the potential for plagiarism on actual human written work increasing?
I've had people steal my stuff, Neil. So if you want to find out what my opinion is on this, I've had it happen by people that were genuinely doing it in a way that they thought was respectful of me, and they were really amazed with what I'd done. And by taking it, they thought that I would see that as a good thing on my side, like that I had inspired them. Like, don't come at me with inspired by, like, honestly, rah, like, I'm just, I'm going to.
Note to Lil,
leave it at
lion sound, a tiger sound effect in there.
And because the thing is, I've had people steal my stuff and put my name in a font in about 2 font on the last carousel slide down in the bottom corner somewhere that if you get out a magnifying glass, you might see my name in there. I've had things where people have taken my transcripts and they're just, like just basically presenting it as their own. I get that I put content out there that people can use. And, again, I don't want to turn into the cynic that holds it all, and I stop being me. But when you take my stuff and go and present it as your own, and especially I get people that are training their workplaces based on my YouTube videos, based on the podcast, just give me some acknowledgement, say that you've used my content. Have that conversation within your workplaces so that there is an opportunity for me to work with potentially some of your businesses. I appreciate that some of you may not have the resources to be able to work directly with me. That I have no problem with that. It's when you take it and present that work as your own that upsets me. And I get that it's seen, like I said, as a compliment on that side, but I've got to eat, right? Like I've got a family and I've got dreams and goals and things that I want to do. And this is how I, do my business. So stealing it, whether it's ChatGPT stealing it, which I've seen it do that, like when LinkedIn used to have the AI summaries, it literally stole one of my frameworks and didn't put my name next to it. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. That was when I was like, okay, what are we going to do here? I don't know how to stop it. I don't have the answers for that right now. I do put stuff out into the public domain, and I get it. I just don't know the balance between being of service and that content marketing versus it's out there free for all. You can steal my stuff and present it as your own. I don't know where we go from there. I don't know if you've thought about this yourself, Neil, but I know you put so much stuff out there in the world of podcasting as well. What do we do to protect our IP?
My stuff is so bad,
it?
even AI doesn't want to steal it, to be honest with you. So I don't really worry about it too much. I just carry on posting my nonsense and just hope somebody somewhere thinks it's half decent.
It's half decent. It goes all right. I wouldn't have you here if it wasn't. But, it's an interesting time because there are generations that, have grown up with, things like TikTok where somebody creates a really great idea. You then go and do your own version of it and be inspired by it. And that's perfectly normal on that platform. And maybe it's just I'm getting old these days. Maybe I don't get it. Maybe I need to change. And there's probably a bit of self-reflection in here as well. Maybe I don't give away as much. There's probably a fine-tuning and calibration to kind of go on right now. But it just, that combined with some of the other things that we've spoken about earlier in the podcast certainly has got me going, I've got a few question marks on what 2026 might look for me, for my business and, working with clients. And I think that's probably a good thing. I don't think we can just keep doing same old and have it work out like it has, because the world has definitely changed.
What do you think it's more about, and sorry to sort of pontificate on your own show a little bit here, but I think you raise a valid point about, how do you differentiate? And you're sort of talking about AI making it easier for imposters, but also the plagiarism aspect. If you do have anything real to say, there is a risk that someone's going to go, oh, I like that. I'm inspired by that. Don't you think that's where the storytelling comes in? Because nobody can actually have your stories. Like a machine can't say, oh, well, my dad was a policeman and I worked in beauty and now I'm teaching people how to put content out there. They just can't do that, can they? So do you think that is maybe the 2026 strategy?
Yeah, look, you have to put more of you into it. The more that it moves away from generic and general advice into, like you said, it could be storytelling, it could be my experiences. And I think that's what I, talk about with my clients so much is, your business and the people that you have within it are completely unique, your ways of doing stuff. And so I think sharing about that definitely is important. And I think we need to do more of that because you're right, it can't be copied. Your experiences can't be copied. And I think that's where it becomes real and where people can kind of latch onto that. And most important, it becomes memorable because you made somebody feel something, and I think that's where content for me in 2026, how do you make someone laugh? How do you make someone angry? How do you make someone get a little bit sad, a little bit happy, like whatever the feelings are, fired up in some way. I think feelings and content, and that comes with storytelling, is part of what needs to happen, going forward, because that soulless content, it's just not going to cut it. Like, it's just awful, and it just feels, like, what's the point? And I think that's the tough question right now. What's the point of the content that we're putting out there? And if you don't have an answer for that, don't put content out. Like, take a minute and go back and think, why am I doing this? Just because I want to tick a box and say I've got to do 3 posts this week. No, it's not a good enough reason, really.
I love it. Okay, so here's a deep one for you. If LinkedIn disappeared tomorrow in this weird world where Microsoft just go, do you know what? We're selling, and we're going to sell it to some company that aren't interested in social media anymore. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm going to say podcasting. And I'm not saying that just because it's you, but it is something that I've realized. So I'm active on, I have 3 main platforms right now. So I have LinkedIn as my primary. I have 2 podcasts that I do. Social Media for B2B Growth podcast is my main one. The LinkedIn Branding Show is also a podcast that's coming up to 200 episodes as well, which is kind of crazy when I think about it. And I have a YouTube channel. Now, what I've discovered is that my highest quality clients that I can work with come from my podcast, hands down, every single time. And you can use that for your sound bites that, my client, Michelle J. Raymond, says, you can absolutely use that, because I've done the maths, I've seen it. And the clients that reach out from YouTube, from those videos, they're different. They're often looking for free advice. And price points end up a bit out of skew, because they come in with they're looking for a solution or an answer to a question. They find that via YouTube, whereas the relationship building happens on podcasting. So I'd be on the blower straight to you going, we need to find me lots more podcast listeners. And I think I'd love to help businesses create podcasts as well, so that they have this opportunity to build relationships with people and not just hide behind content, because I feel like content on LinkedIn for businesses is handed down to the person with the least experience, that they don't want to pay for someone senior, and they don't set that person up for success, whoever it is. And they just throw them in the deep end and push them under the bus and say, yeah, you'll be right. Like, just, you can write a post, you can do it. Like, it's fine. And so with podcasting, you will find out very, very quickly that that doesn't work. Yeah. And if you don't think about who you're doing it for and why you're doing it and what will they get out of it, and stop talking about yourself, then podcasting doesn't work. I've got 100 episodes. I can prove to you, I didn't get any business out of those episodes. Like, that was just me doing it because I thought I needed to do it to build my personal brand. And now that I realize that that's not why I'm doing it, yes, it does help me build my personal brand, but that's not why I do it anymore. And the impact on my business has just been pretty amazing. And again, I still can't believe that I'm having this conversation about podcasting as someone that just didn't get it. And just didn't, as I've said to you, I just read the transcripts of podcast episodes. I could never understand why someone would want to listen to them. And, I have a few podcasts that I listen to. I now listen to yours. I listen to Jay Schwedelson's.
You become an addict.
I've got 3 now. I've got 3, and it's crazy to think that I've got 3 podcasts that I listen to now, which, again, for someone who can't learn via listening, that's a big deal. But I have to be on the bike at the gym. I can't be anywhere else. I have to be stuck in the one spot.
You mean you stop listening to your dance remixes now and you actually listen to podcasts?
No. You only get a turn when I'm sitting on the, like the weights or like doing that. When I need some actual motivation, you're not it, my friend. I love you.
Love it. I love it.
But I need my hard dance music to get me really going. You know that.
Oh, I get those periods in a day too. All right. So that's great. And actually that segues really nicely what you were saying about, teaching people. So You have taught a lot of people. Let's be honest about it. With your show, you're not just your podcast, which obviously has given immense value over, you'd say 100 episodes, but I mean, you were starting the journey. I'm sure there was some valuable stuff in the first 100 as well. So that's a lot of people that you've taught to grow on LinkedIn in that time. But what's something, and I guess it's going to be a harder one to identify from your podcast audience because you predominantly don't know who many of those are, but those that have fed back to you and those that have fed back to you through the LinkedIn platform as well, what's something that they've taught you about yourself?
I think the thing that those people teach me about myself is self-belief. And that might sound like a cringe kind of comment, but the honesty of that is that I'm one of those people that is a high performer in most of the things that I do that never thinks I'm doing good enough. Is the story of my life. You have been on the end of my self-doubt kind of conversations where I'm like, is this enough? How are my numbers? Where am I at? Like, especially when I was questioning whether I should keep going with the podcast. Should I go by myself? Shouldn't I? And those messages that I receive from people, especially when they say things like, it's easy to understand. I'm not going on like a lot of the other rubbish that's out there. They know that they can apply it. They can relate to it. Those kind of things really give me the encouragement to keep going and shut the noise up in my head, which is pretty nonstop. And it's not imposter syndrome. Like, it's not that. I know that I know my stuff, but I often doubt whether the people out there will love it as much as I want them to love it. Like, I am that person that's like, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Like, it's nonstop question in my head. So when I get those messages, it's that moment where the self-doubt stops just, briefly for me to actually enjoy this and remember that I actually genuinely love doing it now, and I hope that they feel that. And I hope that people understand that I show up every time and you think I've got it all together and it's easy for me. And, like Michelle can speak really good and all that kind of other stuff. But the fact is I have to show up week after week and get past my own stuff that I have my own version of it in my own head, just like everybody else. But I choose to do this for other people and get myself out of the way. But yeah, when I get those messages, or the, podcast reviews, they're like hen's teeth. So when they actually happen, I'm, and someone's written one, I'm, high-fiving myself behind the scenes. And it just gives me that little pep in my step to keep going. And who knows how many episodes that this podcast will end up. Like, it's just crazy to think about. But yeah, I have a lot of talking to do. But thank you to anyone that does leave those messages and send them to me. Like, they genuinely mean the world to me. And yeah, I appreciate anyone that's ever done that.
Last question, and it's a biggie because we're going to talk legacy. 20 years from now, when you're all retired from your final house renovation, you're looking back on all that delicious metrical money. What do you want people to think about when they think about you?
That I genuinely cared. I want people on the other side to know that, yes, this is my business. It absolutely is. And I unashamedly, I'm here to help other people grow their business. Now, there's a piece of the story that I don't talk about very often about why I do this. And so I think now's as good a time as any to share it. But about, I don't know, let's call it 20 years ago, the timing doesn't matter. I was driving home from Mardi Gras Parade here in Sydney. I live 2 hours away. And driving home at, stupid o'clock in the morning, I came across a car accident in the middle of the road where I ended up trying to help that young person who ended up literally dying in my hands. And you might be thinking like, what has this got to do with LinkedIn? Well, it turned out as part of that story that young person was killed by a drink driver. And I saw the impact that it had on their family. And from that moment, it changed me because I realized that when people make bad decisions, it has impacts on whole communities in this particular case. What's that got to do with things? Well, I always look and go, as I shared earlier, money gives you choices. And I like to think that if people grow businesses, they can hire people that then get paid, that then can have choices and hopefully make good choices in their life, and are surrounded by people that will help them also make good choices. And so this business growth for me is about giving other people choices so that, maybe, just maybe, they don't make a decision like that young person did that time that had such a prolific impact on my life and the people that were involved in that. So if you want to know why I do what I do, that's where it goes back to. I knew that we would end up somewhere like this in this conversation. And for those of you who can't see, I'm fighting back the tears right now because it's a good reminder to me of why I do this. And the bonus is I get to do what I love. I get to help people and problem solve, which is my favorite thing in the world to do. And I just happen to find LinkedIn to do it, because I still believe in the tool. I still think it's an amazing way to connect with people that are experts in their field all over the world. But if I can help you grow your business so that we live in better communities where people don't make dumb decisions, then that's a reason to do another 200 episodes as far as I'm concerned.
What a beautiful answer. Seriously, well done. I'm very proud of you with that. That was a great bit of vulnerability. I'm going to re-record the question because I want it to fit better. Is that all right?
You can do whatever you do.
I don't think the metrical money part is appropriate given the response. So I'm going to do it.
I think it is because I don't think so because I think we leave it as it is because the genuine part is I do work hard and I do want to grow a business, and I am unashamedly here to do that just as much as the personal impact and legacy that I want to have. And, someone like Lil, who, shout out to Lil, I couldn't do all of this without her. And I couldn't do this episode without acknowledging who she is for me and who she is in our business. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. It's just that simple. Having her in my corner, it was her idea to do the business. It's her that picks me up from the corner when I'm having those meltdowns where I think, oh my God, nobody loves me. Why do I keep doing this? I'm not very good at what I do. I'm going to have, all those kind of things that, like I said, my brain goes through without having her here. But I'm here to help my family have the dream life that we want to have just as much as everybody else. So yeah, don't cut it out because, I'm proud of the partnerships that I build by being who I am. And, that's a part of my story just as much as everything else. So yeah, no need to re-record it. I'm just super proud that people, like Metrical, shout out to them, have supported the podcast when I, again, didn't even think that anyone would want to be a partner and support my podcast because I didn't have enough downloads or it wasn't big enough or it wasn't this or it wasn't that. And they were like, no, we'll grow together. And I think that is what I love about this, is that I'm surrounded by people. We're all growing together. So yeah, I got to grow my own business. If I don't take care of my own business, I don't get to do the rest of the stuff. So yeah, they're equally important to me.
I love it. Well done. That was brilliant. Yay!
Yay!
200 episodes.
Oh, look, and I have to say thank you again so much for everything that you've done to get me to this point, because full well that those doubts that I have when I send you texts and go, where am I? Am I at? Where's my ranking? What's going on? Or I can't make my downloads move, or nothing's happening, or should I do this, or can we change my intro, or
you haven't done that for a while, to be fair. You haven't done that for at least 6 months, so we're all good.
Yeah, yeah. I've been busy. You've been lucky. No, it's just one of those things. But I want to say to people, people like you, Neil, how I've become so successful at what I do. And, you take the podcasting piece of what I do and it has leveled up significantly since, you and I became friends and have worked together. So, we're going to make sure that people have all the details to get in contact with you. And if you have a podcast, for God's sake, go and do one of Neil's podcast audits so that you don't put in all the work like I was and get no results, because I can tell you it was immediate, and we've got the screenshots of his fixes all of a sudden meant that my podcast was being, heard by the right people. and more people. And it was just a godsend. So I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate that you are always there when, it all hits the fan, especially around the podcast. And I'm like, oh my God, LinkedIn's going to steal my podcast, help. And you were you just jumped in. So I just want to say I'm completely grateful for everything that you've done. And to anyone out there that has a podcast or wants a podcast, Neil's the only person that I ever recommend. So thank you kindly.
Appreciated. Thank you. And thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's been a real honor and an absolute blast as well. And lovely to hear some really nice, honest, genuine, vulnerable answers as well. So well done for wearing your heart on your sleeve in audio and video.
I know, right?
Easy.
It's going to be there, but as we said, feelings for 2026, stories for 2026. Like, it's not just something that I tell my clients to do. I have to show up and do it myself. So, thank you for bringing those out. I couldn't have done them talking to myself. So this episode has delivered everything I hoped. And thank you to all of the listeners, all of those people that subscribe and download. If you have listened this far, the whole hour, and we are not connected on LinkedIn, please, it was genuine, make sure that we are, and connect with Neil as well. You'll have some fun with that. So everyone, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you for sticking around. It's been a long one, but I hope you've enjoyed it as much as what I have. Until next week, cheers.